Welcome to Delco Stories. I'm Steve. Glad you could join us. We are here. I'm going to start off by telling you where we're at. This is Pierson Geoffrey's Cigar Shop, Cigar and Coffee Shop. It is at 925 Providence Road in Secane, in the Secane Shopping Center. If you know where Stingers and the Price Right is, that's where Pierson Geoffreys is. And we're going to tell some Delco stories about being from Delco. And we got a guy that they call Delco Dan, turns out. Or at least around the cigar shop they do, right?
Okay. So they say.
So they say.
All right.
Yeah, I only know you as Delco Dan. I don't know your last name. Why don't I know your last name?
I don't know.
You don't want to tell it?
Doesn't make that much difference.
Who are you hiding?
No. I'll give it to you. Hiller.
Dan Hiller.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, before we get into the stories that we want to tell here and talk about what we're doing, tell you a little bit about Pierson Geoffreys because they are kind enough to host us for this episode of the podcast. And Pierson Geoffreys has been in business, I think, a little over a decade, I want to say. At least here in Delco. Here in Delco over a decade. Jeff is the owner. He's off camera telling me what to say. But and I am smoking one of his cigars right now. Pierson Geoffreys has their own lines of cigars. Like if you want to come in here for a brand of cigars that you normally smoke, you might not find it here. But what you will find is something amazing. Really good cigar. And if there's a type of brand that you like, Jeff has something that'll match it. He'll work with you and he'll find it. Right now, I'm actually smoking one of the flavored cigars. And I know some people say flavored cigars, that's for beginners. I'm going to tell you something. These are advanced. This one's a Mocha Java. And what are you smoking?
I'm smoking his Warrior Class.
Warrior
which
Class.
Is one of his top of the line cigars. And for me, it's one of my go-tos.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, and we also drinking his coffee. He's got his own lines of coffee. If you're a coffee fan, if you're not a cigar person, but you're a coffee person, you want to come here because he has fresh roasted beans. This is the black tie espresso that I'm drinking, that we're both drinking.
Yes.
So I would encourage you, if you like coffee and you want to buy a pound of really good beans, come here to Pierson Geoffreys. And if you want to come here, smoke a good cigar, you can hang out in the lounge here like we're doing and just talk to people. I've come here many times, just talk to the people that come through the door and you have some great conversations.
Yes.
So let's have one.
Okay.
All right. So
what do you want to know about Delco Dan?
I want to know, well, maybe not everything. You might not want to tell everything.
No. No.
Where are you from? Tell the people where you're from.
Well, I was born in Philadelphia, West Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up mainly in Havertown. When I got married, we bought a house over here in Briarcliff because my wife's from Briarcliff.
Okay.
In that area, she grew up over there. So we
what
were there
street?
Park Drive.
Park Drive, because I lived on Stratford Road for years.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we bought a house right up the street from her on Surrey Lane.
Surrey, wow, Park
You know?
Surrey.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's like
yeah.
a block away.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we were there for 7 years, and her being a teacher, and we were in the middle of a row, and we were having some problems with the people on the other side of us who were renters.
Mm.
Yeah, which wasn't a good combination. So, and we were just having our two young children, who were young at the time, and we wanted to move. And like I said, her being a teacher, we just go some places out in the area, and found out Springfield had a good school district,
Yes.
and that's where we are today. We moved.
When did you move to Springfield?
I'm trying to think years and stuff like that. I gotta think. 7 years after we were married, so.
Was the bazaar still there?
Bazaar was still there.
Okay, then I got a good time frame.
Yeah, bazaar was still there. Yeah. So I guess it was the late 80s, something like that. Yeah.
So you've been Springfield.
So let's just figure it this way. My son's 37, so he was 1 year old. So we've been there for 36 years. We've been married for 45, so do the math.
Okay.
Anyway, after all that. But
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have established your Delco cred. You've been quite a few places. You've got now.
Well,
how many people have moved from West Philadelphia to Delco? It seems like a lot of stories. My family has roots in West Philadelphia.
There you go.
My mom was born there, or her first year of her life before we moved to Glen Olden.
Yeah.
So it seems like everyone in Delco, a lot of people have been here a long time, started in West Philly, and established their roots here. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to O'Hara.
Went to O'Hara, okay.
Yeah. Grew up in Havertown, but 12 years of Catholic education, grade school with Sacred Heart, Manila.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And yeah, so I'll start with this story
Go ahead.
because you told me before we turned the camera on that you were part of a historic class at O'Hara.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What
we,
was?
We were the last class where the boys and the girls were separated.
Okay.
And I graduated in 71. The year after that is when they went co-ed.
Okay, so you never were there with the co-ed. You were always separate.
I graduated. Yeah.
So
the last class.
So people that go to O'Hara now, maybe they know the history that it used to be separated, or maybe they don't. But
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people who grew up knew that the separate schools were Bonner and Prendy. You know, for the longest time.
Yeah.
O'Hara. So when they separated O'Hara, was it? It's always been one building, right?
Yes.
It's always been that in that building.
Yes.
And so.
And so when if you went in, you had the gym that was there, and the boys were on the left, the girls were on the right. That's the way it was.
In the gym. Like
no. If you went in the front doors in the center of the building, if you went straight, that was the gym. So the left-hand side, as you walked in, that was the boys' side, and the right-hand side of the school was the girls' school.
Okay. So were they having classes at the same time? Like you know, you go to gym class.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a wall between?
No wall.
No. So you could see
So
all
like
the
I said, the gym separated probably, but there was long hallways, first, second floor.
So you would run into the girls on a kid. Like there wasn't a line that if you crossed an alarm went off or something.
No.
The Holy Ghost would stop you.
They would just be there. You just weren't allowed to be on the girls' side, and vice versa. Girls
Oh,
weren't
okay.
allowed to be on the boys' side.
So how did they police that?
They had nuns and they had priests. So,
I had to ask.
That's, yeah.
So the nuns
they
were
figured
walking
that
around.
way.
So there was a nun
And
at the border.
And back then there was corporal punishment, as they say, you know.
So the nuns
Today
would walk the line with the ruler, and if you put a foot over, whack.
Well, for the girls anyway, we had all priests pretty much.
Oh, okay.
teaching
Well,
us. So I guess thinking back, it was the nuns teaching the girls and the priests teaching the boys,
Okay.
or lay teachers, which would be the men teaching the boys and women teaching the girls. Yeah. That's
Wow.
when there used to be a lot of priests and nuns back in the day. Today anymore, it's kind of a dying thing. I don't know.
I mean, it's a different way of doing things.
Different world.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to imagine this. Why you mentioned gym class? I mean, obviously you're having your classes and you're having a single room. That's easy. But if you're
There was
having
a
a gym,
divider in the gym.
What's
There was
it?
an actual divider.
So there was kind of a wall. Or was it a wall? But you could
in
see
the gym.
You
in
could
the
see
gym.
each other.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Sometimes. Yeah, see each other. Yeah.
But I mean, like you're over
But,
there playing basketball.
Recess, lunch, or whatever, separate.
Oh, so
Classes separate. Yeah.
okay.
So
When you're doing
Try to
lunch,
imagine.
were you doing lunch in like the same cafeteria but just on different sides?
I got to think about that. Probably yes.
Okay.
Same cafeteria, but yeah.
Could you yell across, like if you had your girlfriend eating on the other side, could you be like, hey, we going out later?
I don't. Maybe if you tried, you get yelled at probably. But yeah, it was supposed to be separate.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I am fascinated by this because I didn't experience this, and a lot of
Okay.
people didn't.
All right.
So, did you have dances? School dances?
Yes.
Okay.
But I really never went to them back
Oh.
then. I was kind of like a shy, and I always worked after school. and
Okay.
I only had a few friends back in the day that I was really close to. So I didn't have a lot of friends and like girlfriends, kind of.
Okay.
Like, so.
Did you ever go to one? I'm just curious.
I went to a prom. I wasn't
Okay.
even my own prom. I went to a prom later on down the road from a girlfriend that I had was still going, who was younger than me. So I went to her prom.
But she was going
But
to
I never went to my own prom.
Oh, wow. But she was going to O'Hara.
She was going to
So
O'Hara.
by that time it
And
was
I met
already-
her at Don Guanella, which, if you want to get into that.
We
kind of
will.
thing.
But I want to, but like, I'm trying to figure out, so if they
Yeah.
had a school dance there, it's like all the boys on one side, all the girls on one side, and maybe they'd like throw
No,
a
it wouldn't
flag
be
and
like a
you're
mingle.
allowed
It
to.
would probably be like a mingle.
Right.
But that would be.
But if you danced, you had to leave room for the Holy Ghost, right?
You did.
I know.
Maybe.
I did
Yeah.
not grow up in Catholic school, but I know enough about it being around here.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, Jeff wanted me to ask you about your days of going to the Tower Theater.
Okay.
I want to hear some of these stories.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
This is what, high school? High school
There
years?
used to be concerts all the time down there. Me and my brother, pretty much, high school years. I was able to go there myself and with my friends, and God, at least once a week there was a concert there. Maybe twice. There was always a concert there, and it was so convenient. And it was either that or going to the Spectrum. Saw so many shows at the Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in Philly called the Bijou Cafe. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It was off of Broad
Sounds
Street,
familiar, yeah.
South of, They have a lot of little shows there. So Pat Benatar back there in the day.
In the Bijou?
At the Bijou
Okay.
Cafe. Yeah, she was just starting out.
But tell me about the Tower Theater specifically.
Okay.
All right.
Great place to see a show. Sound.
Did you go there once a week? Like you
If
said,
they had a show there. If there was a show there, me and my brothers would probably be there. My buddies, yeah.
So you just went there because, hey, there's a show, let's just go.
Exactly. Well, a rock show. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And pretty much that's what they had. Pretty much hard rock shows, or,
Who were the biggest acts you saw there?
Genesis, the first time ever coming to the States. It was an afternoon concert. They had two shows that day. It was an afternoon and an evening show.
Uh-huh.
And we went to the afternoon show. And like I said, Peter Gabriel was the front man. Phil Collins he was just the drummer. And
This is the Peter Gabriel era.
Peter Gabriel,
Uh-huh.
yeah, exactly. Queen, I saw two nights
You
of
saw
Queen there.
wait, Queen at the Tower Theater in Freddie Mercury in Upper Darby.
Bohemian Rhapsody was coming out, and they were pushing that album or that song, whatever, and yeah.
I'm trying to
two nights
imagine.
in a row.
I'm trying to imagine Freddie Mercury in Upper Darby.
There you go.
That's hard to imagine. That's.
And at the time, I'm trying to think of any group that would come down the pike that would play the Tower Theater. We probably saw there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was convenient. It was right down the street, or right down Westchester Pike, and easy to get to. And
did groups like Springsteen ever do the Tower?
here's a funny story for you. When I was working at Don Guanella, met these counselors there, right? And I was into rock then, going to a lot of rock shows. They said, there's a guy coming to the Main Point. I don't know if you ever heard of the Main Point.
Well, my aunt used to go to the Main Point all the time.
Little place,
yes.
A little corner, like to the almost as big as a store.
Yes.
Had desk in there, little stage.
Mm-hmm.
And they said to me, there's a guy has a group. His name is Bruce Springsteen coming to the Main Point. You want to go? I said, who the hell is Bruce Springsteen? I never heard of Bruce Springsteen. I was in the rock,
And he was rock.
He was supposed to be really good. Well, he wasn't,
different kind.
Just it wasn't hard rock. I was like the hard rock kind of stuff. And I said, no, I don't want to go there. Well, the rest is history.
Yes,
right?
you missed out.
Kicking myself to this day that I didn't go to say I could have saw Bruce Springsteen at the Main Point. But I saw a lot of other people probably at the Main Point back in the day, like Jackson Brown, and Dan Fogelberg,
yeah.
if you remember him.
I do.
And a lot of country rock kind of guys.
Okay.
Or I don't know if I saw James Taylor there. I might have, but I kind of forget. I mean, it's kind of like a fog back
What do you?
there.
Okay.
But I saw a lot of groups at the Main Point back in the day. Yeah.
Like a fog.
Yeah.
You're seeing groups like Queen and Genesis at the Tower Theater. I think there would be a fog.
Yeah, we were into all that stuff.
What do you like? What's your one memory? If you could pull back one memory of seeing Queen at the Tower Theater, like, is there something that sticks out about that show?
Yeah, it was a very visual show. A lot of pyrotechnics, I remember, because I like a good visual show, and a lot of the groups back then had it. But coming to the tower like that, and just it was loud, and just the way he moved around on stage, and it was just the total rock show for me, because like I said, there was a lot of flash pots and explosions and different things, and I thought the music was great then, and I thought it was so good. I went, because they were playing 2 nights in a row. I went back the next night and saw it. So I saw them 2 nights in a row there.
Got any stories of any of your buddies doing something stupid at a show? I was like if you go to a lot of concerts, it's like this one time.
Well, not about us doing anything stupid. Well, we were a lot of shows at the Spectrum. We were, drinking, smoking, whatever. But back in the day, and this is before your time, groups you would see like Black Sabbath or let's say AC/DC at the Spectrum, and they used to be called dance concerts. None of the seats would be reserved. So everybody tried to get there early to get a good spot. So you go in the concourse of the Spectrum, and there'd be a ton of people all waiting to get in. So these guys, when they open up the doors, it would be like a mad push to get in to get the seats. So, like I said, you see a group like Black Sabbath, everybody's on the floor, no seats, standing. It would be like the 4th of July in there. You would have Roman candles going off, fireworks, bonfires actually would start in the middle of the floor. It'd be a small fire, and then another one would start.
Wait,
and it would get bigger. People throw trash in there because you'd be able to smoke. It would be like a cloud in that place because there'd be people smoking. They would be all drunked up or whatever, and they would just let it go. There'd be M80s and
inside the
Spectrum.
the Spectrum.
We're sitting on the side of the stage.
Okay.
Me and my brother, like a few buddies, would be there, right? M80s and firecrackers would be going off, and you'd be looking around, not knowing where that. You're all tuned up, right, ready for the show, and it was. And I still remember this. Fleetwood Mac was opening up for Jefferson Starship.
Okay.
That's a show, right?
That's a show.
We're sitting there. All of a sudden, my buddy next to a firecracker lands on his lap. And we're like, all tuned up, watching the show. The rest of the night, we're like, it broke our whole like mellow mood that we're. But this would be pretty much every hard rock show that would come to the Spectrum. There'd be stuff like that.
How the hell did the Spectrum not burn down?
Now, when that stopped is when in Cincinnati, the Who was coming.
I know the story.
And a couple people got killed because of situations, people getting crushed trying to get into that show.
You know
they
how
said after that, no more dance concerts. Every seat's going to be reserved. We're going to have control of, or try to get control.
I know that story because they did an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati about that.
Okay.
That's how I know.
That ruined the dance concert.
Yeah. Probably a good thing that they stopped.
It was really crazy. I tell people stories like that and they don't believe me. Like, no, that didn't happen. Because nowadays you can't light up, you can't even
I don't
do anything. Like you can't smoke in the place at all, anymore.
The Tower Theater. I know because I actually, one of the concerts I went to at the Tower Theater, this is more recent, Ringo Starr did his all-star band there. It's about 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And, and that was fantastic.
My brother was at that show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he brought Todd Rundgren.
Okay.
And so, so I'm watching Todd Rundgren in the Tower Theater. I mean, that's a big deal. And he stopped and told stories about how he used to go see movies at the Tower Theater. He used to sneak in and see these these weird movies. They weren't really like first run movies. They were.
It would always be a double feature when we used to go, but it was like a matinee, like almost like a kid's matinee. That's what I remember going.
Tell me about some of the movies you saw at the Tower Theater.
Well, like I said, they're mostly horror. I like horror movies and stuff. Science fiction, horror, that kind of stuff. That was my thing.
Okay.
But in later years, one of the last times, I guess maybe they were trying to get a different clientele in there. They showed an X-rated movie, which was Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
So wait, you went to see an X-rated movie at the Tower Theater?
Yeah.
At the Tower?
It was not a triple X movie, but it was a mainstream X-rated movie. That I don't know if you've ever heard of Siskel and Ebert.
I know Siskel and Ebert. Yeah.
Ebert, at the time, and I didn't know this, he was one of the producers of that movie. So if you look it up, and I didn't know that at the time, but years later I found that out, that he was trying to produce it. But it was like kind of they were trying to do a mainstream kind of X-rated movie based on. It was a novel back in the day. I think Valley of the Dolls. It was called, but this was called just Beyond the Valley.
Well, it's like nudity up on the screen and.
Widescreen, Technicolor, and the Tower used to have one of the biggest screens, because of the bigger theater. So there you go.
He's doing the X-rated movies at the Tower. Hard to imagine that.
But it's probably a double feature. I can't remember what the other feature was. But that was what I wanted to say at the time, because it got
kind of hard to follow.
It got a lot of PR, like a lot of press and stuff at the time. Yeah.
All right. So you said, talk about. I was thinking about talking about growing up in Havertown.
Okay.
So you grew up. So you said you've been around Havertown, Briarcliff, Springfield, but you grew up in Havertown.
Yes.
Okay. Like let's talk about that, because I want to talk about stories from growing up in Delco, what that was like for you.
Our summer years, we play games on our porch. We run around the neighborhood. We play wiffle ball in the street.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go up to the police station. In the wintertime, there was a big hill because we lived on the Nails Run. We were on the high side, and that was all hills. There was a driveway at the end of our street. I remember sledding down, and that was our big sledding area.
Yeah. Oh, so everyone always had the big sledding area.
Or we go over to the Lennar Country Club. There was a nice hill over there. Slid on the hill.
Which was the better hill? Which was the good
You couldn't
hill?
get over to the golf course down at the end, but you'd have to go into the street. You'd have to have somebody at the bottom of the hill to say, "Okay, there's no car
stop."
coming."
Yeah. No.
And you go right across the street.
Listen, if you grew up in Delco, we all had our hill.
Yeah,
They all had your sledding hill. I mean, Springfield, it's the one now. It's the one by the library. That big hill that's where I take my son now.
My son takes his over
Right.
by the library.
I grew up in Glen Olden, and it was Monument Hill. And if you went too far, you slid right into the creek. Because the creek was at the bottom, and you if you went too far, you went into the creek.
Yeah.
So you had to know to wipe yourself out. But
well, maybe my kids were too young then, because by the time, when we moved to Springfield, I'm trying to think when I first got married, when we had our kids, and maybe they were too young then, where we took them when I was in Briarcliff. But no, it was probably in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
But it was probably over thinking now that I'm talking to you, there was an incident. Incident when I had my daughter, who was young at the time. I had those round plastic sleds that they used to have. You couldn't control them or whatever.
oh yeah,
Well, I put her on the sled by herself down that hill at the Township Building in Springfield, and I'm watching her go down, and she ran right into a tree.
oh.
And I came home, and at the time she probably had a concussion, but I didn't.
Oh no, you
I
didn't
told
know.
my wife that Maureen just ran into the tree. She had a big bruise on her forehead or whatever, but. Yeah.
Nowadays, that would get you talked to by social services. It's like I pushed your daughter into a tree on a.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
how
one of the stories. Because that's where I took my kids probably back then, and you take your kids there.
Yeah, you were telling me about a story growing up, of a game you guys used to play as kids.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me about some of the games y'all used to play.
The Johnny Smoker Wars.
Okay, Johnny. That's
or the games on the porch.
Yeah, well, no. I want to the Johnny. Wait. That's
Life.
I don't care about Monopoly.
No.
What's a Monopoly? You're
Johnny
gonna.
Smoker.
Oh wait.
That's
Do you want
the
to talk about Monopoly or Johnny Smoker
The only
Wars?
person
Yeah, I want to talk about
Johnny.
Johnny.
The only people that might know about this today is my brothers, and a couple of friends that we have.
Okay. What are
Everybody
Johnny
else
Smoker
is
Wars?
just, maybe it's just something we made up back in the day. It was a tree, and I don't know the name of the tree, but they're long cylinder kind of, I don't know what you would call them, that would grow from this tree. And we go up there and pick these things up and gather as much as we can, and we run around the neighborhood, throwing them at each other, trying to get away from the two. There used to be two groups. You'd be divided into two groups, and we called Johnny Smoker Wars. That was the name of it. It was just a matter of throwing these things. Or if you're up, there was a driveway above where we lived, and the next street above that went through the whole back, and you throw them. And some of these, we have porches in the back, patios in the back of our houses, and some had a covering over it. And one time we threw it on this guy's roof, and he was like the mean guy in the neighborhood. I still remember this. And picture, this is a thought go back in my mind, that he came running up because we threw it on the back of his car and made this loud sound. He came up, I guess he was working in his garden or something, with a pitchfork, a big thing with it, and started yelling, and everybody ran, and I was the only one that stood there. I don't know why I stood there. I was like stupid, and he starts yelling, "I know who you are. I'm going to tell your parents." I still remember this guy.
Pitchfork?
He was like looked like at the time I was young, it reminded me, he was like the devil of the neighborhood, and he was going to go and tell my parents, which he did. He told my parents, and we got hell.
with a pitchfork.
I swear to
Come
God,
in,
with a
chase-
big, you ever see
chase
this thing,
it
a 3-4 prong kind
Oh.
of thing, and he's standing there and him yelling at me.
Wait,
So I
let's
remember.
take stock. First off,
Alright.
y'all are out there with
And
Johnny
this is a
Smoker.
memory I have from way back when. Yeah.
With Johnny Smokers, y'all
We're doing
throwing
the John-
sticks at each other, and a guy comes chasing
We
after
threw
you with a
it, so one of-
pitchfork.
It wasn't even me. It was probably my brother at the time. Threw it on this guy's porch, and he come running up, mad as hell. Here's a story for you. From
Oh
back
yeah.
then.
So
During our Johnny Smoker Wars.
Oh, my God. So
time.
let's yeah. So for fun as kids, y'all went out and threw sticks at each other. They got chased by guys with
sticks. They were
pitchforks.
Johnny
They
Smokers.
were sticks off
Come
a
on,
tree.
man.
It's like
They
we're gonna
weren't
go
real.
outside. We're gonna throw
They
sticks
were
at each
real
other.
sticks. We ran around the neighborhood doing that. I swear to God, that was our thing. Yep,
Oh my God.
there it is.
That ain't a Delco story. I don't know what is, folks. What do you think makes you Delco?
What makes me Delco? I don't know, Steve. What makes you Delco?
I'm the interviewer here. You guys shoot right back.
Yeah, see, I'm shooting it right back at you.
All right, look, I'll answer the question. What makes me Delco? Okay. I grew up on McDade Boulevard.
Okay,
On McDade. My house was on McDade Boulevard.
okay,
My mother was the manager of the McDade Mall for 30 years.
okay.
If that don't make me Delco, I don't know what else does. My mother being the manager of the McDade Mall for 30 years, I
Yeah.
felt like everyone knew her.
Okay.
Because I would go out and be like, oh, you're Steve. I know your mom. And to this day, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I used to, I knew your mom. It's like, she used to kick me out of the McDade Mall. I get that story so many times. It's like, yeah, your mom used to kick me out of the McDade Mall because I was, being a pain in the butt. And
Oh, okay.
to this day, they would always follow it up with, tell her I said hi. I always liked her. I'm like, my mother would kick your ass out of the McDade Mall and make you feel good about it and want to say hi to her later. Because like,
Oh, okay.
Delco is like everyone seems to know each other on a certain level. And
Gotcha.
you grow up on McDade Boulevard, you see so many people. Like my grandfather owned a television repair shop. And it was partly our house and partly the shop was in the front.
Okay.
So we lived in the back of that. And it was one of those, like in Delco, he had a small business.
Yeah.
He brought his
Okay.
family out here from West Philadelphia, moved here,
Yeah.
opened up a small business, and that's how he supported his family. And I
Yeah.
would be at the small business, and I would see all these people, like all walks of life, just coming to my grandfather for service because
Right.
they had to fix their TVs back then. You
Right.
didn't just throw it out and go to Best Buy. You
Right.
actually tried to fix it.
Okay.
So it's just you would get so many different walks of life
Okay.
that just came through there.
Okay.
And it's like from some of the richest people, like people from the main line would come down and, come into the shop, or just people from around the corner.
Okay.
And you mentioned the McDade Mall. It's like, the famous people from Delco. Think about it. Tina Fey probably knows where the McDade
Yeah.
Mall was. If I went up to Tina Fey and I dropped the McDade Mall,
There you go.
she's probably been there.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what binds, like the bazaar.
The bazaar. Yeah, I remember being to the bazaar. Yeah, many a times back in the
Mhm.
day, and walking in, and there'd be the pretzel guy. Bernie's Pretzels be right there on the right. And
Yes.
Yeah, walking up and down there, the shoe repair guy, and the different other stores and whatnot you see along there. And they'd have a little arcade kind of thing, which I used to love, like going in there playing the pinball machines. I'm a big pinball fanatic, I guess you would say. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
even to this day, you go on the boardwalk, in Seattle or Ocean City.
Mm-hmm.
I go right into the arcade and see what new pinball machines they have or whatever. But yeah, then there'd be the movie theater right there next to the mall.
Yeah.
You remember the
They
theater?
that was where the Models
Yes,
now closed.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's
I
the
remember
movie
going to
theater.
that. Yeah.
And the movie
And
theater
the movie
in the
theater
McDade
in
Mall.
the mall itself. Yeah.
You told me
My
off
brother-in-law
camera.
was an usher there. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Your brother-in-law
So-
probably saw my mom around.
I'm sure. Yeah.
She probably kicked him out when he was.
Yeah. Me and my wife and girlfriend at the time, we got in there for free. I remember seeing. It used to be the hookup to get into the.
You
the
too.
movie.
I used to. Hey, look, I had to hook up. I got into free movies all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it was a good perk.
Yeah.
Being the manager's son.
So yeah. So what you say about what makes me Delco is maybe because I was raised in Delco.
Yeah, I
and
think it's
had
a little- yeah.
all my jobs. Well, my Verizon job was, I guess, along the main line. I worked out of Bryn Mawr. I did all along the main line. But all my other jobs, I guess, were in Delco. My younger years, and
Like, I think being in Delco, it's like knowing people that know people. It's like, you know, we come up to each other. It's like, oh yeah, that like you know someone. It's like, oh yeah, that guy. I know his cousin. He's a good guy.
Yeah. For my wife, I think growing up in Briarcliff, she knows everybody. We could be out in the store somewheres, and she would recognize somebody. She recognized somebody when we were in Disney World one time, when we were on a tram car ride, riding by each other, and she recognized somebody. It was like, you know everybody, you know. But
that probably happens.
I had a small circle of friends, that, you know that, and I, you know, from my parents, I guess people knew us. And here's a funny story for us working at Don Guanella. My brother also worked there for a while.
Okay.
And my parents, and I told you about working at this St. Jude shop.
Yeah.
My parents knew the DeCocos who ran this the St. Jude shop. They'd have a prayer group, being so religious, and all her friends used to think me and my brothers were saints because, oh my God, how can they work with at the time those retarded kids? You know, it takes a certain kind of person to work with those.
That was
kids.
the language of the time. Yeah.
Yes. Over the years, to this day I hate that word because
Yes.
even the kids that were there, they were slow learners because they were Catholic Charities kids that the church didn't know where else to put them,
Right.
so they put them there, you know, because they were, what's the word I'm saying, Down syndrome kids,
Yes.
autistic kids, just slow learner kids. It would be all that. Anyway, but because we all worked there, and them being, they thought, oh my God, your kids are so good. They're so, my God, they're so good. Meanwhile, on the weekends or like at night, whenever we could, we'd be going to these concerts, drinking, whatever, doing all kinds of stuff. But our PR, because of working at Don Guanella, was we could do no wrong.
And talk a little bit about how you came here. Like this is your hangout now, right?
This is my hangout. Yeah. So
this is where you became Delco Dan.
I don't know. According to some people, I guess I don't know. But
tell me about.
I met Jeff when I used to go. I was driving. This is after my Verizon years. I was driving a school bus for Marple Township. I did that for 13 years, and in between runs, because I lived in Springfield, and I was less than a half a mile away, I guess, from Stony Creek Shopping Center, which there was a cigar shop there called S&J.
I used to go there. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, probably saw you back then.
You probably did.
Anyway, I go there, group of people there I met, and one day I was there, and Jeff showed up, and he had these cigars that wanted people to check out. So I said, yeah, I'll check them out. I got a few from him, and to this day, I said, at the time, I said, and I had Cuban cigars, and I said, God damn, I said, these cigars are like the best cigar. They taste like a Cuban, you know. And at the time, they were like, what, $10 a stick, I guess? And I said, that was a deal compared to paying what I was paying for a Cuban, you know. So, yeah, that's how I met Jeff. And then a few years later, he was looking around for a place to open up himself and do his own cigars, and got this place. And I've been coming here, I guess, ever since.
Here we are. We're just sitting here having a conversation. These kind of conversations happen here at Pierson Geoffreys all the time when the camera's not rolling. I mean, people sit around here and talk about life.
Sure. Yeah.
And
yeah, a lot of times I come in and it's just me and Jeff, and I love talking to Jeff, you know, and we just shoot the back and forth, and shoot the breeze.
Well, thank you for telling your stories.
There you go.
I appreciate it.
All right.
We're going to do more of these. Do more of these here at Pierson Geoffreys, because they got a great setup here, and it feels like a good home for these stories.
Okay.
And if we want to come to your business, talk to me. Be happy to go around, and you got an idea of someone I can talk to, like Dan, like Delco Dan. If you got a Delco Dan in your place, maybe you got another Delco Dan, and we can talk to them, and we can figure out who the real Delco Dan is.
A lot more interesting stories, maybe. Yeah. Interview Jeff. I think.
Jeff's on my list.
There you
Jeff's
go.
on my list. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.